Good morning, it's Bando, back once again with the Renegade Master, and this is Breakfast with Bando, episode 2 of my Starting the Heresy series. And today I'm going to be taking you through a look at a couple of armies, and trying to explain what a narrative army is. So this is really focused to the guys who mostly play things like 40k and are only ever in it to win it. So, what's narrative? Well, in the most simplest terms, narrative is the story. When I was at university, we would discuss the two types of gameplay that you have in making video games, which is narrative and ludological. And the ludological side of things is the simple mechanics of it. If I throw the ball through the hoop, I get a point. If I throw the ball through the hoop while I'm standing behind this line, I get more points. The goal of the game to win is to score the most points by the end of the time. The narrative is, why am I throwing the ball through the hoop? Why do I get more points if I do it from a certain point? Why is there a time frame? And in the Heresy, I feel, and a lot of the community is quite vocal on the fact that the narrative is more important to them than winning. I've seen a lot of guys coming back from events very happy with the fact that they lost utterly, but they had a really good time because it told a story. On the flip side, I have friends who play 40k heavily in the tournament scene, and they're never happy. It really is that simple. They are often just angry that a certain army's turned up, or that half their opponents were using the exact same force. And yeah, it's because these people are always trying to play to win, and it's called win at any cost, or win at all cost, whack. And it's not fun to play against. I'm sure it's not fun to play over the long term. I'm sure short term you're absolutely fine. But for Heresy, it's about telling a story. It's about the narrative, your narrative, your troops. Who are they? What are they doing? Why are they here? What's their little slice of the Heresy? We've read the books. We've seen the clips. We know what the Heresy is. We know the big players. We know who Garviel Loken is and what he does. We know about the flight of the Eisenstein, and we know the battle for the the beacon, which I can't remember the name of it. We know all the big stuff, but again, as I said in the first video, legions are made of hundreds of thousands of Marines. That's 100,000, 250,000 for the Ultramarines. Heroes, all with their own unique stories. And that's what we're doing here. And we're telling our own little stories. The Horus Heresy tabletop is our own brand of fan fiction. So the first army we're going to look at is my Sons of Horus. And the Sons of Horus here, this isn't the whole thing, this is just a small selection of them, is the 228th Strike Force. The 228th is not a popular formation in the Legion. They're under-equipped, they're at the bottom of the pecking order, they're often being shown up by other companies. So they make do with what they've got. And they've made a reputation for pulling rabbits out of hats. And their motto is, what the War Master wants, the War Master gets. And they got the nickname the Damatruf Retrievers. Damatruf being one of the Sons of Horus, the canopic jars in ancient Egyptian myth. And they would specialise in assassination, prisoner capture, or prisoner liberation, artifact retrieval, and things like stealing prototypes. So they were the epitome of the Sons of Horus, the sort of spear strike straight in and back out again. So this force on screen at the moment represents a flanking distraction, sort of a fast moving, hit them from the side, try to pull the enemy away so that the rest of the force can do what they need to do. So this is just using the standard Rite of Wars, nothing special about this. And it's about 1,000 points. It's 955 points, I think. And what we have is, to start with, is our 2 troops, which, as I said in the first video, bolter guys. Got 10 guys, they've got Nuncio Voxes, they've got Vexellas, and the sergeants have got Melter Bombs and Lightning Claws. Exactly the same on both squads. And they've both got rhinos, and these are Mars pattern rhinos, which is the 40k rhino, which is perfectly fine to use. But the difference you'll notice is they've got multi-melters on them, because we can take multi-melters on our rhinos, and all other sorts of funky toys. And those are there just to add a little bit more firepower, you know, make them a bit more of a threat. And these guys, they're going to be doing the bulk of the work here. They're going to be dropped onto the objectives, soak up incoming fire, and hopefully, you know, last to the end of the game. To add some sort of punch back to the squad, or to the army, sorry, I brought a heavy support squad. And like Devastator squads, these are the guys who carry your heavy weapons. And you'll notice, first off, that they're wearing different armour from the other guys. These guys are in Mark III iron armour, because I want them to look heavier. The narrative here is these are heavy weapons guys. These are going to be getting absolutely hammered by incoming fire, and they need to be able to take that fire and dish it back out again. So I've gone for heavier armour, heavy shoulder pads. I've thrown in a bunch of heads from the Iron Hands Forge World upgrade kit. The sergeant actually, I believe his head comes from the Venerable Dreadnought kit. And again, they've got a rhino, which is actually a rhino I built to be a command rhino. The back panel replaces, it's not stuck in, but I can't find the just the regular doors that I built for it. And again, it's got a multi-melter on top. All the hatches, not hatches, sorry, the cupolas and guns on the top can be taken off as well, so that they can be replaced with different weapons. Or no weapons, if I really want to go cheap. And next up, the backbone of the army, is my 2 fast attack choices. I've got a pair of speeders, and these are just regular speeders, not javelins, because narratively, the Force can't afford them. They don't have the resources, they can't get the requisitions, so they're making do with what they've got. Hence, all the Mars pattern vehicles, the Mars pattern bikes, and these speeders. So what I've got here is just heavy bolters and missile launchers. Nice cheap loadout for them, good fast moving, and they can sort of make a lot of noise. The attack bikes, 1 unit of attack bikes with 3 bikes in it, and in 30k we can take autocannons on our attack bikes. So I butchered up some Cadian heavy weapons and threw them on there, and I actually quite like them. I think they look kind of cool with the autocannons on them. Bits and pieces from them are all different sort of armour marks. The legs were the hard part to convert here, because they're actually Mark 7 legs, so I've had to either shave the kneecaps down to make them look more like Mark 6. On the one closest to us, you can see I've added a load of studs to make it look a bit more like Mark 5, or I've had to square off the knee pads to make it look a bit more like Mark 4. But at this distance, and they're hidden quite well by the bikes, it's not a big deal. Change the torsos, change the helmets, change the backpacks. So yeah, 2 units, fast moving. I've actually got a 3rd speeder on the way. I've just printed off the missiles for it. So yeah, you can see here these guys have got lots of 3D printed shoulder pads and helmets, and lots of optics on them. You know, making sure these guys are really built for sort of their scouting role. And also, you can see the remnants of some of the Imperial fists who they tassel with all the time on the base. Ah, look, a Beaky Marine. Like, it hasn't been 5 minutes since I've had Beaky Marine shoved down my face by social media today. And the last thing to look at for this army is the leader, who is just a Centurion, quite a low-level officer. And he's just riding a bike. He's got a Lightning Claw, and artificer armor, and I believe melter bombs. So yeah, he's just a junior officer. His whole job there is to lead the force. The pose I've gone for is kind of a relaxed, almost casual look. He's like dragging his claws across the floor. And yeah, again, with the narrative side of things, that the painting is telling a story here as well. You can see how heavily chipped and worn the armour is. You can see the red primer undercoat underneath it. I wanted to get that kind of German World War II tank, because a lot of the end of the war they had a nice dull red primer coat under them. And for him, his parts come from all over the place, the biggest one being the helmet, which comes from the Palatine Blades kit. So yeah, that's the My Sons of Horus, or maybe a third of My Sons of Horus. But this force is designed to be fast moving, everything's mounted, and everything's cheap. So that's the narrative. This is not going to be winning any tournaments fast. I haven't got anything that can really kill any tanks, particularly. If a Primarch turns up, I'm absolutely boned. Spartans, even a Whirlwind's going to ruin my day. A heavy weapons squad with las cannons is going to ruin my day. I've got nothing that can deal with flyers, really. But that's not the idea. I'm not there to do that sort of thing. So this isn't a win at all costs army. It is just a narrative army. The next one is a little bit different, and I'm going to warn you right now. It's probably going to be unpopular, because yeah, it's not going to be something people are normally going to like. It's White Scar Dreadnoughts. Yeah. I'm sorry. So this is a Fury of the Ancients lists, which, for those of you who don't know, Fury of the Ancients is one of the rights of war that basically lets you take dreadnoughts as troop choices. Yeah, dreadnoughts as troop choices. Someone actually got paid to come up with that idea. And I went for White Scars. But Bando, I hear you scream, and I have heard people scream. White Scars don't use dreadnoughts. Aha, but they do. In I believe it's book 9, they do mention how they use dreadnoughts. They hate them. The Chagorian White Scars utterly despise dreadnoughts. So that's what I thought. Hang on, if they hate them and they want to get rid of them and they see them as bad omens, that's great. Let's lump them all in the same place. So this is the Brotherhood of the Dead. And it's a good mixture of Terran and sort of the low-life members of Chagorus, members of the Legion. And yeah, they bring the dreadnoughts out. People don't want them going into fights with them because they see them as bad luck, so a lot of the time they fight alone and unsupported. And yeah, that's kind of what I went for. It's also the only White Scars army I've done, or the only sort of list I've put together that has a speeder or bike in it of any sort. But we'll cover that in a bit. So looking at here, the rule of war, or the right of war, sorry, states that I must take specific HQs, which is a Forge Lord and a Primus Medicae, which is a beefed up apothecary. So I have got my 2 models here, which is based off the Tiberius the Red Wake from Forge World, which is a great Terminator model. If you haven't picked him up, I strongly advise grabbing him. He looks fantastic. Just lose the really silly lightning claws he carries. With all sorts of gubbins stuck on him to make him look like he's wearing cataphracti armour. I think I've done an okay job there. And then he's got himself a conversion beaver, because it's 30k. We have access to all sorts of weird and wonderful kit. The Primus Medicae is actually made from the 40k White Scars biker kit, not the plastic one, the resin ones. Just mixed with some plastic bits, some Mark IV legs, and an apothecary backpack. Each troop's choice is 2 dreadnoughts. So I have 2 contemptors, and the arms are all magnetised on, well, are magnetised on most of them, so they've just got random weapons attached at the moment. And for the colours on these, I do love the white and red of the White Scouts, but I find it very boring in large amounts. And after reading a lot of the White Scars books, you realise how individualistic they are, how interesting as a people they are. They're not just barbarians on bikes going fast across the plain. You know, they've got history, the markings on their armour mean something to them. So I went really heavy on the old freehand for these guys. And I threw in the secondary colour of black. So we got the red and the white, tertiary colour. And I threw in the black because obviously it contrasts really well. And I went heavy on the red because the fluff, from my point of view, is that this force would then go on to form the second founding chapter, the Ravagers, who are a White Scar successor who wear all red. And you can see that they're fighting the Emperor's children, who are having a really bad day. Again, if you've never built a Forge World Contemptor, do not judge it as the plastic Contemptor, which the current plastic Contemptor is trash. You'll see one in a minute and it looks awful. The resin ones are hands down one of the best models Forge World has ever made. Every joint is opposable. You get like 4 or 6 feet. You can pose the head. This is the Death Guard version. The last 2 have both been Death Guard, which is my favourite. Because it's got all the bonding studs on one side, and it just looks a bit more heavily armoured. But they're so poseable. They're great. So, back to this image. And you can see here on the left and in the centre, these are both the plastic Contemptors. The one on the left is pretty much standard. It's a pretty awful photo here. The one in the centre, I did a lot more work on. I smoothed the chest out, added loads of bits, chopped him to pieces and reposed him. And I've made a conversion here by having a chunk of rock on his close combat fist. And it's these little stories to me that make these models interesting. And that is that he was fighting on because this was originally set in the Scouring, this army, so just after the siege. He took a chunk of the walls of the Imperial Palace with him when they fell back, and had the tech priests fix it to his shattered arm. And that's, I just, there's little stories that make these characters really interesting to me. Next up, we got a Leviathan. The Leviathan, again, like the Contemptor, is a fantastic model. It's really poseable, and it's a chunky model. Now, it has got last chance to buy, I believe, and that is a really good indication that this thing is coming out in plastic. If it retains the amount of flexibility that the resin one has, oh, you're going to see these everywhere, and that is not a bad thing. Again, lots of freehand on this guy, lots of sort of breaking up the big sort of white areas. And I wanted to make him look like he was fending off, something jumping at him, maybe an assault marine or something was jumping at him. I actually tried to kind of model this on the I think it's 2016 Doom cover, where the Doom guy's got the demon jumping at him and he's got the shotgun. Yeah, it didn't work. And last dreadnought in the army is Stumpy here, who is just a standard Castaferum dreadnought. Really hard to get the right hand close combat weapon for a plastic dreadnought. Forge World used to do them, absolutely great. The only kit I think that comes with one now is the Space Wolf one, and boy was it difficult to get my hands on that. Swapped out the head for a Tartarus Terminator just to make him look a bit more 40k. And again, tertiary colour of the black just to mix things up a bit. So yeah, those are my dreadnoughts. This is a bunch of old Terrans fighting for the White Scars. Sort of the last march of the Ents sort of thing. You know, the dead are marching to war. This is not going to win any games. The dreadnoughts, if you lose one, you lose victory points. They can't seize the initiative. I mean, the Fury of the Ancients is awful from a rules point of view. But it's really narrative. And for certain armies, it can be really, really fluffy as well. Definitely not White Scars, but I'm me. You'll get to know me. You'll get to hate me. Yeah. And then lastly, my land speeder, which was a Christmas present a couple of years ago. I wanted to make a White Scars army with 0 bikes and 0 speeders, and I nearly did it. This is a cool model. I like this. It's a definite throwback to Rogue Trader, and it is a pig to put together. If you're going to get this model, and I do recommend getting it because it is a fun model. Paint it in sub-assemblies. It's going to be so much easier for you. Says the guy that paints his White Scars off a black undercoat because he likes suffering. Right. That's me done. I will hopefully do another video tomorrow. For some ungodly reason, I have decided to do one of these a day. And I will do maybe a look at a couple more armies tomorrow. Yeah, we'll go through. We'll have a look at the Imperial Fists and the Thousand Suns tomorrow. And Imperial Fists are very similar to the White Scars in the sense that I wanted to take units that no one would ever take. Stuff that everyone says is bad. Probably shouldn't do that in a hobby that costs so much. Oh well. I'm Bando. This has been Breakfast with Bando. And thanks for watching.